Hi, hello, Amber here. So today we're painting from this reference photo that I've added into the video here. And the first thing I'm going to do is get my 100% cotton paper. It's wet, wet on wet. I am just adding in color. You could do that with a mop, round, any kind of brush would work. It's not super imperative what kind of brush you use. But I do want to make sure that I'm trying to add in lots of colors. These do take a while to layer in. I did speed it up for you because it takes so long and it is a bit tedious. And so you could slow it down. The main idea you want to keep going here is to keep your paper equally wet and drop in lots of color. And move this color around. Don't just let it sit there. See how I'm kind of blending and kind of not letting there be brush strokes. I want everything to kind of really blur together. And if you're getting brush strokes and you're not happy, spray a little bit more water on there with a spray bottle. That will help diffuse everything and kind of loosen it up, loosen up those pigments, especially when you're using a little bit of a heavy pigment. See those few red bits where I have a bit of more of a heavy pigment? I definitely want to loosen that up, and a spray bottle will work, or like I'm doing, just working in the brush and kind of smoothing everything out. And you just want to make sure you keep doing that over and over. And it really is just a tedious process, right? You're just layering it up till you feel happy. The idea is to have some lighter areas, medium areas, and darker areas. And you want those to have some sort of harmonious feel, right? I do like to concentrate my darker areas on the outsides and then a few on the inside to kind of create this balance. So you don't want to do too much of one thing in any one spot. You want to make sure that you're trying to balance this and get a even kind of a feel, right? Organic flow feel. I know that kind of is an oxymoron, all of that, right? Well, she said to do this, but now she's saying to do that. But you're just trying to get a really good base. So now we have a pretty good base right down here, but it's very flat kind of, right? So now I'm going to go back in with some more heavier pigment. I already thought I darkened it up, and then you think you do, and it kind of like diffuses, and you have to add more, and it's kind of, because we're using a lot of water, our paints are diffusing a lot, so we're losing that vibrancy. So again, it's a game of give and take, right? Give, wipe some away, blend it out, and then see here I'm picking it up and moving it around and spreading my paint so it's not just pooling, because again, I'm using a lot of water. So there's a lot of water pooling in places, and by being able to move your piece of paper around like this on a board, or any kind of board will do, you're able to manipulate even more. You're giving yourself more control versus being taped down to a table or something where you can't move. So again, I'm just mixing up colors. I am using all of the same basic colors, right? So I'm using the same blues and reds that I'm mixing to make that purple. I'm using that red and that purple, and I'm using a lot of that same yellow in with the red to make the orange. I am using a little bit of orange on its own, but I'm making sure. Now I want to drop in some sort of like light sap green, or even more of a light olive spring green, and just kind of loosely do that, right? Because I want to suggest those leaves. Some of those leaves have green in them, if you remember, and so I want to suggest that green. I'm just wiping off all the extra pooled water and paint with a cloth. I do prefer to use cloth versus paper towel. I think it's great using something reusable, period. So I highly recommend just using a cloth. So here I am dropping in some more ochre, because I love ochre and because it gives such a warm feel. And you'll see that I want to keep those pockets of light too, right? And so that ochre is going to help me with that. There are some even lighter spots, as you can see. You don't want to fill in all those light spots, right? Leave some of those whites there. Now, and by whites, I don't mean white, but the lightest parts you can see, especially down on that maybe lower third, there's almost like that little trail of white. Don't cover that in too much. And I start to, and I'm like, oh no, I'm losing it. So just be mindful of that area. So now I'm taking a little bit of sepia and mixing it in with red. Actually, is it sepia? It is sepia. It's a dark brown. So I'm mixing that dark brown and burnt sienna and red, and just kind of adding a little more depth and a little more contrast in the spots that need it. I'm looking at my picture constantly on this one. See, I'm picking up. I noticed that my light needed to be up there a little bit too. So you can just pick up paint with a brush that you've rinsed off, dabbed off on your cloth, and then just, it's called a thirsty brush. And so you're just picking up extra water, extra pigment, extra color, and just kind of playing with that there. Cleaning up my edges again, because the water pooling on the edges of the paper will go back in and bleed, which isn't a huge thing in here. Splattering in some red brown, and just maybe helping. Now I'm smearing that because I didn't really love the splatter, so take that as you will. I do like adding those little bits, and I think splattering is a great way to add some of that contrast, but I do like to blend out those splatters because they're too splattery, right? They're too obvious as splatters, where I just want them to be hints of color, hints of contrast, hints of light, just hints. So I did take water there and sprinkled water on top of mine. That's another option you can do. I'm just trying to show you all the things that you could possibly do just to give you an idea of what you can do out there. So I'm going to dry, and then we will get back to adding more layers, and we're going to spray again. And I just, after I dried, I realized that my dark area is dried too light, right? And so I am taking pyrrole like red. I have this other piece. I've did 3 of these so far. This is the 3rd one, and I have this first one I did. I really like the red, so I'm holding it next to me and trying to see like what I did. And I'm not trying to duplicate necessarily, but I really liked how vibrant that red is on the one on the left. I can show you later, but for now, I just knew I really liked that, and I wanted those that vibrancy to be in this one as well. And I didn't achieve that on that one layer. So sometimes this takes 3 layers, sometimes it takes 4, sometimes you can do it in 2, sometimes you can do it in 1. It's kind of just how you apply the paint and how you like to layer. Lately, I've been layering a little more slowly. So what that means is I've just kind of been adding color here and there and going back to different areas and going back and forth and blending like I'm doing now, and kind of moving things in and moving them around, and adding more water so it's diluting it all. But it's up to you. You don't have to do it this way. This is just an idea, a way that you could explore things, and maybe it gives you one little clue, like, oh, you know what, I'll try this next time, or I'll try it that way. And maybe your way works perfectly and you love it and you don't have to do this at all. Maybe I'm just talking along so that you have somebody to paint with, and that's okay too. Also, at this point, when it's still wet, you may want to add some shimmer. I like to add the shimmer when it's still wet sometimes, just so you get that hint of glow of shimmer. You don't have to. Totally and completely up to you. Again, just an option. There are lots of things you could do. So I did take some orange and decided that I would like some more pockets of orange in here. I did this straight Ben's orange from Masha because it's so bright. And there's the shimmer I wanted to add in. And see, more dark color because I've lost it again. I just really, really love this red. And I did mix pyrrole red with dragon's blood and with not flame. What is Masha's other red? If you know Masha's red, I used her too in pyrrole and mixed those. And I am going to show you how to get the bokeh effect. And that's a Princeton Neptune round. It's just a soft, fluffy brush. I prefer to use these soft, fluffy ones. And I just speed through this really fast because it's super mundane. I am using a stencil. I'm using a clean, wet brush. And I am just rubbing away color in the middle. And I'm dabbing with a cloth over and over and over. I'm overlapping. I'm making sure my circles are all different sizes. The ones next to each other are all different sizes especially. I don't want 2 bokeh shapes the same size next to each other, and you can do different levels of rubbing too. And I tried this other brush and I did realize I didn't really like it as much, but I am showing you to see if I could get different amounts of paint picked up. So you can use any kind of brush you like. You can use a stencil brush, which would take off a lot. You don't need a stencil, and I'm going to use gold and copper embossing powder. I have my embossing stamp. If you want a list of supplies, I'll put it down below. I'm not going to go through this because I've already made a video on embossing, and you're welcome to watch that. But so I'm going to stamp a few of my leaf shapes on here, and then I'm going to use the embossing powder with 1 color. I'm going to make sure I'm really careful because this stuff is messy and it spills, and it's just so messy. It's the only downfall of using this stuff, but it's so magical and so much fun. And don't be crazy picky if you get it wrong. This stamp didn't work perfectly. I didn't press down all the way where I was supposed to, but this is the magic part. Look at this. This is so cool. So if you want to see embossing more, I did do a live on Instagram the other day. You can go check that out. And I also have done a tutorial on YouTube on how to do embossing, and you can see all the supplies and all my little tips and tricks, and my my chatter as I'm doing it, not chatter, but my tips and just my dialogue as I'm embossing, so that you can learn little things and here and there. It really is quite easy, and it's really fun, and I think it's fairly inexpensive to get going. The stamps are so cheap these days. And you don't need fancy stamps, quite honestly. You can use any stamps. You can use stamps from the Michael's dollar bin. Anyway, so here I am going with copper. I really actually liked it embossed, like when it was just that kind of that sepia looking brown purple. But anyway, I had to emboss it. So here we are. That's it. That's a wrap. I can't draw leaves, so this was my take on this month's reference photo with my subscriber group. If you'd like to join over there and paint along with us and vote on photos, you should join my subscriber group on Instagram. Super fun, and we paint one every month, and there's all 3 together. Let me know which one you like the best, and thanks for joining. See you next time.